feeling? We've also got Jason Clark, our Lewis Creed. Come on in, Jason. Amy Simons. We've got producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura. And screenwriter Jeff Bueller. Oh man, you guys really did a number on all these fine people here.
By the way, there was an awesome cover of the song you were about to hear, and the awesome band Starcrawlers here, and they lowered it! I'm like, why do you hear the song?
We said play it till the end.
Maybe when we're done, play the ending, yeah, so that people can hear the song. Anyway, thank you.
Dennis, Kevin, would you like to be buried in a pet cemetery?
Yeah, just not the burial ground beyond it.
Pet Sematary is fine, but I don't think so.
Let's have one more hand now that we have everybody up here. We're going to take a couple of audience questions at the end, so get your questions ready. You guys, how does this feel to see it on screen? First of all, start us off, what has been your personal relationship with Pet Sematary, the original Stephen King novel, the 1989 Mary Lambert directed film, and its amazing sequel, Pet Sematary 2. But how far back do your relationships go with this particular story?
I started reading Stephen King probably when I was 12, maybe. He was always we call him a gateway author. He was the author that kind of made reading fun and cool. You always had to read books for school. Then it was you got to read a Stephen King book and you were that felt like a vacation. So for me, he kind of activated my creativity. Made me want to write and read. And I think Pet Sematary was one of the first few books I read of his. And there was a quote on the back of the Mass Market that said the most terrifying novel that Stephen King has ever written. So it felt sort of like a dare to read the book, And so I started with the novel.
My relationship with Pet Sematary started with the movie, and I saw it when I was 13 at a friend's house. We had a sleepover. My friend had those parents that went to bed at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever, those weird parents, and then you were all right, we can do whatever we want. And we watched Pet Sematary, and I remember we watched a lot of horror movies down there, but I remember that when I left, and I kind of was bothered by it in a way that I wasn't with other movies. And and I think it was those deeper themes of grief and death that just kind of sat with me. And then I saw Pet Sematary 2 in the theater.
Wow. And Jason and Amy, what was it that drew you to what made you want to be a part of this telling? Amy, I know that you read Stephen King as a kid, which I love. Shout out to all the kids out there who read Stephen King at maybe a very, very young age, because what did it do to all of us? But tell us about what was appealing about being part of this retelling. Also, I'm not recovered from this ending. This is 30 seconds removed from this very shocking ending, you guys.
There's no happy endings in this movie.
It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Very different. I love sitting back there and watching. This is the second time now I just saw the end of it. But it brings a smile to my face now. You hear everybody, releasing emotion during it, and laughter and shock and that. I mean, for me, it was to read it. We all read it on our own. It's a very dark, disturbing, upsetting piece, particularly when you have children. And then to shoot it, it was very hard. I mean, we spent a good month and a half of the shoot in the full horror. So to actually watch it now with everyone, it's a lot. It feels like, oh my God, it's a different movie than what we shot. So it seems like a lot of fun. It's enjoyable.
Amy, your take on this fun family movie that we just experienced?
Well, I love family movies and the Hallmark Channel. So I read Stephen King when I was 8, and R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike, and then Stephen King, a lot of Stephen King, Cujo, and Christine, and Pet Sematary, and then So yeah, no, I mean, that was part of the reason that I wanted to do it. I also liked the guy's first movie, Starry Eyes. So, you know, a bad director can ruin a good thing. So I'm glad that they took it into their own hands. And I'm like,
We're glad we had you.
oh God.
Lorenzo, you've made a couple movies in your time. But you, particularly with Pet Sematary, you've been developing this for a while. So what was the key to like getting it together finally and all these pieces coming into place? Was it a matter of timing? Did it take a certain kind of, you know, I don't know, like atmosphere in the culture for a studio to want to make this story now?
Well, you know, it's sort of a testament to the power of the book and just the ideas of it that kept us going for roughly 9 years, I think, since we started. So there were several times where we almost got it made, and then they changed management at Paramount. So it became a little bit of one of these things where you're like, oh no, oh no. And then you start despairing, but I have to say, when the new management came in, not only did they want to make it, but they had the guts to make a pretty dark version of it, you know, and that was really great. And I think, you know, in a time period where a lot of movies are really vanilla, this is anything but. And I give them a lot of credit for backing all of us here who, you know, participated in making this crazy movie. And I think the ideas of this book just carry on. And it's one of those interesting things that it doesn't matter what generation you are, it's going to apply to you. So it'll keep applying. They'll probably make another movie 25 or 30 years from now.
You gonna reboot this again in 20 years? Jeff, you're a writer. You're writing Pet Sematary. What's it like to see the tweet from Stephen King endorsing this movie?
Well, that I have to say I was probably the most nervous about his reaction to it. Just like all of us up here, I grew up with Stephen King. I mean, that was part of my upbringing. My parents are here tonight. I want to thank them for buying every new Stephen King novel when I was way too young to read them and wrapping them and putting them under the Christmas tree. I used to like run down there, and the other presents didn't matter. If I saw a book, I was like, oh my God, the new one's out, and I would devour those books. So having just been raised on it, and like all of us, I think, really wanting to do the book justice, knowing that this book is up there with, I would put it in my top 5 Stephen King novels. It's definitely an important one, and it's a difficult one. So wanting to do it right. And so that was a challenge, and it was fun. It was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of times where, like you said, where we didn't know if it was going to happen or if we would make it there. But then to get through that and see what all of you guys contributed after I did my thing and brought to it, and then to have Stephen King tweet out, "Be warned, this movie is scary." I was just like, okay, cherry on top of the sundae, I'm good. Like, I'm just, that was really gratifying.
Well, guys, talk a little bit about the challenges of adapting this, not just from the source novel, but, you know, with the first film out there in the collective memory. Where did you want to, you know, pay tribute to those previous iterations, and where did you find the latitude to sort of make your own new choices?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. You have to. There's been a movie already, so you have to, on the one hand, honor the essence of the novel, and people have to have read the book, have to see the movie, and say, okay, that's Pet Sematary. You know, no matter what we're doing to the end of the movie, no matter what the tweak is we're making, Ellie is one of the the book that's asking those questions about death. You know, so to us, if we were going to change something, it made sense to have her then be the one to come back because she has a presence of mind to be aware she's dead and to ask those questions again when she comes back, so you could have that sort of dark full circle, that whole theme. You know, so that was exciting to us. And that alone made it really irresistible for Kevin and I. We said, okay, that's something different, that's something new. So that's really what it is. You have to honor the fans and honor Stephen King, and they have to feel like they're getting the essence of the source material. But then you have to do something for today's sensibilities, and you have to update it, fresh it, and kind of breathe new life into it. So we were constantly, walking that tightrope of making sure that we were honoring the book, and that any changes we made were still honoring the essence of the novel, while at the same time doing something new for 2019.
I have a question. Show of hands, how many people here have read the book?
Oh,
Wow.
Nice.
What about how many people have seen the previous film? Wow, so see, that's a lot. What do you guys think of the twist? I think it's so effective. And this actress, we have to talk a little bit about her.
Jatae Lawrence.
Jatae Lawrence, she turned 11 right during the filming.
Yeah.
Jason and Amy, tell us a little bit about your on-screen daughter.
Well, she's more professional than we are. I mean, she's amazing.
Tell me about it.
It's a little scary, actually. I mean, it really is scary to watch her sort of click in from being a little girl to clicking into being Ellie, like evil Ellie, just because she does it so naturally. And you didn't have to sit and watch her slowly kill you, but she's got that sinister thing down. She's gonna do really well in middle school.
Yeah, Jason, your character especially has this really, dynamic relationship that changes so much, evolves so much with Jatae's character, Ellie. What was it like to sort of dive into these really difficult, terrain with an 11-year-old co-star?
I mean, I guess, I thought it was one of the best choices in the movie, for starters. You get so much more mileage out of having a young girl rather than, a boy. You're going to have to end up with a toy at some point. But, I mean, I guess the biggest one was where I understood that she didn't just want to get it right, she wanted to be an actor. Like, she wasn't, often with kids you'll see, they just want to get it right and then move on. It's like, okay, great, we'll cast you, or that's right, we'll move on. But Jatae really wanted to enjoy a performance. I wanted to go further in a performance, and I think you can see that on the screen, particularly in a number of scenes there, where she wanted to take it as far as she could go, and was prepared to do that as a young woman, and that's when I really connected with her. That I thought, bravo. You don't have to just, we're there as actors to serve the directors, but you've got to get it for yourself as well. You've got to enjoy going into this scene or going into this moment and stretching it out, rather than just, okay, they've got what they want. And I do have a good relationship. I think she's wonderful.
What was it like coaching, or directing Ellie in the not good Ellie scenes? She has this voice that she uses.
The funny thing is, what it was like directing her, it was weird. A funny story that I tell is that there was somebody on set that came up to me and said, I was asking her parents, oh, she's so good, what did you do to prep her for this role? And the parents told me, oh, we didn't really do anything. The directors must be telling her that. And I sat there looking at this person going, oh, really? Because I thought her parents were prepping her, because we're not really telling her anything. So, I don't know where it was coming from. It was funny, when we would do certain scenes, she'd say, hey, guys, can I have a minute? And we'd go, okay. And she'd, go off in the corner, and she'd stand there, and she'd look down, and she'd go like this, and then she'd go I'm ready. And I'd go, oh, okay. So I don't really know where it was coming from. And as far as the voice, like you were saying, one of the things that me and Dennis was worried about was okay, having a young child act evil, and we were worried okay, how's she going to sound? Is it going to be, we wanted to make it scary, but not really silly. Some kid going take that, mommy, or whatever. And then so me and Dennis were what are we going to tell her to get this voice right? And so we started directing and talking to an 11-year-old going so there's this ancient spirit talking to you, and blah, blah, and she was like,
You're a vessel for this
yeah. What the hell? The voice has got to be something she goes, well, I was thinking about doing this voice, and we were yeah, that's it, do that.
Forget what we said, let's do that.
This question really applies to everybody across the board, but the themes that you folks are exploring in this telling of the story are so so compelling. It's a beautiful thing, I think, that genre film can be used in this way to talk about really very deep traumas that we all experience, very universal. Like this young lady said, we all probably need therapy now to sort through what we just experienced. But that also makes this really special. You examine not just death, but what comes after, and it's a cautionary tale in many ways, as entertaining as it is at times. But talk about like what was important to each of you to find in terms of these deeper conversations about grief and guilt and trauma and how we process.
Well, I'll just jump in. For me, the process with this script was always to identify the monster as grief and loss. And what's cool about what Stephen King does, which not a lot of other authors or filmmakers can get away with, is he puts so many different mythologies together. There's dead people, there's ghosts, there's warnings, there's Indian mythology, there's all kinds of things. And for some reason, when you read his novels, that all seems natural, but it can be very dangerous in a screenplay to start packing a film with so much different mythology. And so that idea that the monster, that the force driving the film was the grief and loss that this family was experiencing, allowed me to have a rudder through all of that crazy Stephen King world. And then it just sort of fell in on that. And the balancing act that you mentioned, Dennis, was really finding like how much Zelda, how much Victor Pascal, how much of the Micmac mythology, how much of that stuff do we need to build out the Pet Sematary world and then let this emotional journey that these characters are on go through that. So I think in retaining the spirit of the novel, it really works, but then all the changes also work because that environment is true to the book.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean,
That's the question. After I listen to Jeff, I don't really sure I know what the question is.
I was just itching to see.
Well, Lorenzo, here's a good question for you. How hard is it to get a studio to greenlight a horror movie that is about grief?
It's super hard to get any green light, and it really is. I mean, it
Harder than getting a movie about robots greenlit?
Yeah, well, that took a long time as well, actually, you know, so they kept saying, what are these robots? What the hell, what are they going to do? It's going to be cool. No, it's every time you go try to get a movie made, there's so many perilous moments where you just can't really believe that it's going to get to the next stage. And, you know, for me, it's interesting. I think for every one of us, it's about different things. Yeah, it's about grief, but that's not really for me. For me, it's about our relationship with death, and I think as a society, we really brush it under the rug, and we've increasingly tried to distance ourselves from it. And so this forces you to look at it in the most uncomfortable ways, you know. And having read the book when I was younger, and then having read the book again after being a father, you get a whole nother layer of what's going on here. So those are the two things that drove me, is that how far would you go to see your kid again? Really far. Apparently, Jason made a really bad decision, but, you know, I understood it.
Jason, you have...
It's funny, one of the funny things with Lewis, you know, because the book is a monologue. You know, the book is a lot of it's a monologue for Lewis. And it was always, what if you could? But I was always struck by, what if you knew that it existed and you didn't? I mean, if Lewis, you know, that whole thing with Judd, you know, that whole handing down, this, you know, from Stanley B, you know, to all the things. I mean, of course, what kind of personality don't do it? And there's a scene in the book, which is not in the film because there's just too many you can't be, but we do half of it when Lewis is talking to Rachel in the car. And he's referring back to when Gage was a baby and he had a problem with his brain swelling. And, you know, Lewis says, but if he was, if you know, if he had had that disease and it would have changed it, would you still love him? Well, of course I'd still love him. Well, that's it, I'm going to go and dig her up, you know. And, I mean, it's that if you can, what kind of parent are you if you don't?
Well, all you parents out there can wrestle with that question.
You know what sort of parent you are now.
Well, I lost my fingernails for starters.
Your children
Lewis had
aren't
no
here, are
fingernails.
they? Your children are not here, right?
Your mom's.
I heard, like, how old were you have twins playing Gage, and they look uncannily like the Gage.
Unplanned coincidence.
How is that
It
unplanned?
really was. I don't know. I mean, that was very last minute, and it was it's tough finding twins that they had never acted before. So we didn't see a ton of kids for Gage. So they were the best. They were the cutest kids. You know, they just so happened to look like Nico Hughes.
Tell
We're
the
like,
truth. Tell the truth, Dennis. Tell the truth.
That's the truth.
I got to give these two actors right here a tremendous amount of credit. Those little kids were a pain in the ass.
He said it, not me.
It's true. It's true. They cried and cried and cried. I couldn't take it anymore. I could leave the set. I just get out of there. I'm done, man. I can't take it. There's nothing harder than listening to a little kid sob uncontrollably while you're trying to get him to do something else. And thank you, too, for putting up with it. You guys hid behind your monitors, so don't act differently.
Well, it was always a relief when we were filming one of the horror scenes because we were like, oh, this is a scene where Gage is supposed to cry.
Then you were safe, right? Then you were safe.
We kept telling a joke that like Kevin and I, 20 years from now, we're gonna hear like a knock on our front door, and there's gonna be these two twins standing there, like 23, and they're gonna like be holding a gun and be like, this is for 15 years of therapy.
Maybe they'll just send you a bill.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not true at all because they gave me a jar of maple syrup when we wrapped up.
Oh, I can.
I know.
Man, sorry, you can't.
Yeah, no. Hopefully they've forgotten the whole experience by now.
And in their defense, they are like 2 years old, right? They're so
Three,
cute.
There were three.
Now they're
Big difference, yeah.
One of
Come on,
them,
get her.
yeah.
Whole different age.
What was harder, casting the right Gage or casting the right church?
Oh man. Well, the thing with the cat was, you know, in Marion Lambert's movie, it's a British Shorthair, and I grew up with a British Shorthair, and the cat's name is Church, which is Winston Churchill. I think they cast that cat because it's a British cat with a British Prime Minister name, you know. So like, and that was a damn good-looking cat. So Kevin and I were like, we shouldn't try to compete with that cat. That cat is amazing. We have to do our own thing here. And in the book, it's a black and white tomcat. It's like a very basic cat, you know. So we went back to the hardcover of the art, and we were like, oh, it's like a, you know, like a Maine Coon with like 4 exotic colors and long hair. And we were like, that's gonna be our cat. And then little did we know how hard it was gonna be to find like 8 cats that all looked exactly like that. So it was really just about finding the trainers, and then we tasked the trainers with now finding that, you know, a lot of cats that could do that, and to their credit, they did. I mean, they say you can't train a cat, and Kevin and I always joke around that our apartments are living testament to that, because our carpets and our couches are torn to hell because we can't train our cats not to scratch them. But
Yeah, Dennis, I heard your cat Max is a real diva.
he's a rascal, yeah. He is, you know. But these cats, they were able to train them, and every cat had a different specialty. There was the cat that could hiss, there was the cat that could jump, the cat that could stare, the happy cat, the evil cat, and they were like this like pack of divas on set, and like, you know, the cat would get on set and have to like get acclimated, so all the actors would have to shut up and just kind of let the cat sniff everything for like 10 minutes. So we just sat there and watched the cat, and then when the cat was ready to go, he would lift his paw and kind of shake his head, and then we were ready to go. And then only then.
I'm so happy we've gotten to the feline thespian portion of this Q&A. I understand also you have like a nice church and like an evil church cat, and they both are on Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, you can see them. Church, aka Tonic, and Church, aka Leo.
The mean, which one was the mean cat?
Leo.
So they would activate him with that toy. Would they put some
Yeah.
like he seemed pretty nice until he got activated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were always activating him with this stuffed animal. And one day he just wasn't
On a
having it.
wire.
Me and Dennis like lost it on the monitor because he wasn't having it. All of a sudden, like from the bottom of the frame, we're looking at Leo on the monitor. This little cobra came swimming up from the bottom of the monitor. It was like the toy when he's not behaving. This is the one that got him real angry.
I wanted to take a selfie with that cat, and when he was grabbed at the end. I'm like, I went to put my arm around him, and the guy's like, "Don't do that!" Like it almost took me out. And I was
You
like,
guys are
"Oh."
making it sound like we mistreated the cat.
No, the cat was not
What's
hurt.
going on? We did not mistreat any cat. in this.
Cats were treated better than Jason and Amy were.
We had the cat wranglers. We had all the cat people we could possibly have to make sure that they were well taken
But
care
that
of.
cat was scary. I'm just saying.
It's a good year for movie cats, I gotta say.
It is, yes.
Who wins in a fight? Church or Goose?
All right, what do you guys think? Church or Goose?
What?
Answer.
Top Gun? Who's from Top Gun?
No.
No!
You guys don't watch Marvel movies?
From the Captain Marvel.
You don't know. Kevin doesn't watch those movies.
Taylor only watches.
You two assholes are going to Top Gun.
Before we take some audience questions, I want to ask you all about the staging of what seems like one of the most difficult sequences, which is the semi-truck sequence.
That took a while.
Well, I mean, it's so beautiful how you do it, because rather than hear these performances, hearing Rachel and hearing Lewis go, yeah, we cut to quiet, and you let this score by Christopher Young take over.
Yeah, where's Chris? Not here. Ah.
Here.
Yeah, Chris killed it.
Shout out also to your cinematographer.
Lori Rose.
There's a quick story about how, like, there were films of Laurie's that you saw him shoot that made you want to work with him?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Lori was we were like, all right, we're doing a studio film. We got to get studio people. But Kevin and I are like indie guys, and we were like, how do we have our cake and eat it too? You know, so Lori was Ben Wheatley's, still is, the DP. So this guy shot like Kill List, you know, and you look at something like Kill List, and you're like, wow, that is a gritty, mean handheld film, you know. But then you look at like Overlord or things he's done with studios, and you're like, the guy could do both. You know, he's got his feet in each pond, foot in each pond. So that was a perfect example of a guy from our amazing crew. We have some of our other amazing crew here as well. We have Todd Chernowski. Where's Todd? He's our production designer. There he is. Round of applause to Todd. And our amazing editor, Sarah Brocher. He's also here. Where is she? There she is. Who else is here from the crew? If you're here, we love you.
Matt Greenberg.
Matt Greenberg. Yep.
Matt Greenberg!
So yeah, just an amazing crew all around.
So take us back to how many days that took, I'm not sure, but you're out there in Quebec shooting on location. You found these amazing locations, by the way, and you come to staging a scene that is unlike anything in the book, and unlike anything in the film previous. Like, what were all of the elements that had to come together? And like for you guys, Jason and Amy, what state of mind did you find yourself in shooting that sequence?
I was happy when the film was done. You know, it was a really rough ride for Lewis. You know, it's a very dark place. Like, I would go home to my children. You know, it's just not something you want to kind of sit in for too long. My frame of mind was pretty absurd by the end. You know, we were, you know, it was rough. You know, that final sequence, it was not easy to shoot.
Yeah. But the truck accident, I mean, it was really just about, like, it was a magic trick. It was about, like, you know, showing one thing you think is going to happen. Like, even though it's in the trailer, and if you saw the trailer, you could glean what happens. Up until the last minute, it sort of feels like, wait, are they fucking with us? Is Gage actually in it? Because he's running for the road, and you always hear the audience sort of go, oh, when Gage is on that driveway. You know, but for us, the main thing about it was there were plenty of places, you know, to have fun with the gore and really kind of, you know, have the viscera and the physicality of the violence. But we felt like that sequence was one of those sequences where you needed to know exactly what happened without actually seeing it hit her, you know? So that scene was all about just, yeah, dropping the sound out and just feeling the moment and the weight of the emotion of it, you know? And just having her be colors in the grass, you know, when he comes around the bend. But, I mean, credit to Amy and Jason. I mean, I think the most impactful moment of that entire accident is your performances, just the way you react to seeing her laying there. And just, it's all over your face, you know, the emotion of it.
Well, and having worked on that scene with you guys, and Matt, shout out to you, because the bones of that scene had been the fulcrum of the movie forever. And I must have worked on it a million times, and I have 2 kids, and you go home from work, you're doing this dark stuff, and you go home and you tuck your kids in, and it's like this head trip. But it wasn't until I saw it finished that it actually landed on me, and this is a testament to the performances and the way you guys staged it. But the first time I saw it completely finished with all the effects and everything in there, I immediately got choked up. And it's so weird to work on a script where you know the characters so well, you know exactly what's going to happen, and then to be caught up in the emotion of that moment that family's going through, and completely forget, like, oh, we wrote this, we made this, there's a bunch of effects here, that the people and that moment in that scene really affected me. So hats off to you guys.
And you?
And really quickly before and if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand so we can get to you. We have to talk about the amazing John Lithgow.
Yes.
Incredible Judd.
I'm sorry he couldn't be here. He's doing a play in New York right now.
Yeah, John was our first choice for this role. If you look at the character of Judd, he's the neighbor. He takes to the family. He's kind to Ellie. But he's also harboring these dark secrets. And a lot of people, when they thought about John, they would kind of think of just one of his personas. They'd be like, John, isn't he the friendly grandpa and Daddy's Home too, or whatever? But anyone that remembers, he's the villain in Brian De Palma movies. And,
Trinity Killer.
Yeah, so I mean, he really was this guy that we felt had, one, he had the physicality. He's 6'4". He had the physicality of how Judd is described in the book, and he had this duality to his personality of the guy that can come across as kindly, but also harbor this dark secret and this darker side to him. He was our first choice, and we pushed for him.
Well, and there's this wonderful story that I've heard you guys tell about his approach to Judd, which is so interesting. Judd, of course, in the 1989 movies, played by the great Fred Gwynne, whose performance John had not seen, but he had this connection.
Well, John was friends with Fred. They had worked together and they were good friends. And John had not seen the original movie, and he didn't want to see it before this because he didn't want to step on the toes or feel like maybe if he saw it, it would be influenced or aping his performance. He felt that Fred was his friend, and he wanted Fred's performance to exist over here as it was, and he wanted to craft his own performance from scratch.
When he said that line, sometimes dead is better, did you guys cheer inside?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of.
Yeah. Another guy that never saw the original film. Let's get right here. Did you not see the film before you did? Yeah.
Sometimes it's better not to. Yeah.
Soon. But you didn't want to watch it before you performed, right?
Are you going to watch it now?
Yeah, I will.
I think I should put on a little Mary Lambert preamble first with all the Madonna videos that she directed.
Yeah.
So,
Like a prayer.
Yeah, and then we'll get into Pet Sematary. Just a little warm up.
Incredible idea. Questions from the audience, right here.
Sorry.
You feel refreshed in the process of making the horror.
Is there a cathartic element to the experience of making horror?
Yeah, I mean, we've all experienced grief and death, and a lesson that Kevin and I learned early on with our first film, before Starry Eyes, was we had a message and a metaphor that we were trying to get across, but we made the mistake of just overtly having the characters talk about it rather than letting the genre actually dictate it, And so when we made Starry Eyes, we said, we could say these things smarter if we do them under the lens of horror, And so for me personally, this film is about communication. You know, it's about everything that happens in this movie happens as a result of, you know, Amy and Jason not agreeing on how they should tell their daughter or talk to their daughter about death. You know, and it's the type of thing where, you know, everybody deals with it, but sometimes people don't deal with it. They push it away, and when you push it away and you don't really own that grief, it festers and it grows into something. And this movie kind of shows how it starts a chain reaction. So it's one of those things where you could either make ordinary people, which I love, you know, or you could do it like this, you know. And so that's one of the great things about the genre is sort of like you can have fun and have a nice, fun Friday night movie, but hopefully it's the type of movie where you wake up Monday and you're still thinking about the themes in that movie and they linger and they haunt you.
It's interesting how much laughter the movie gets.
Yep.
And I'm still trying to process if that's people letting off stress because it's tense. I mean, there's obviously humor in the performances. There's moments that you guys play where things are sort of almost surreal and awkward and fun. But then it's so dark. So, I mean, the cathartic question, I was thinking that. I was asking that about you guys. Like why that reaction? But it's very interesting. It seems really fun in some way. And it's weird how horror can be like that. Play both sides of it.
Turning it back on.
Yeah. What do you think? Why do we have to answer all the questions?
Well, I think, and I don't want to speak for you, Jason, but I think I remember you on set when you were talking about some of the scenes where we're dealing with things that are impossible to sort of grasp. So I think some of the things is like people laugh because they're seeing through Jason's character the absurdity of the situation, a character trying to process what is going on, how is this possible?
It's fascinating.
Well, and speaking of both of those things, in terms of comedic moments, Jason, you have a great oh shit moment. One of the great oh shit
When Amy
moments.
comes home in the foyer.
Rachel comes home, oh man, I gotta tell her what I've been up to. Another question? Oh, right here.
First off, I wanted to congratulate you on how consistent the story is. There was a little coherence issue with the first film, but you know, it felt like you wrapped up certain things nicely with this one. As for my question, I wanted to know what did you put in with the fight scenes with the little girls versus the parents and stuff. I wanted to know what went into those things.
Good stunt coordinator, you know?
Yeah, really good stunt coordinator.
Amy, that was you guys and you and Jay for a lot of that stuff. Yeah. I mean,
A lot of work to get to Tay to really physicalize.
yeah. And Jason, you were pretty key at that. It's something that you guys would do. Remember that is the push-ups and kind of get all worked up.
Yeah, it's a fine line, you know, where they, you know, particularly the young child, because when they really do put it into their body, it's quite a shock for them, you know, and it becomes like very emotional, that was hard. We spent a lot of time working out what type of fight that would be, because, you can discuss on what kind of powers does she have, or what, how do you then kill her, or choke her out, But that was a lot of, and then it was just a lot of fun, and then we actually had this fantastic little stunt actress, who just, there was a take which I'd love to see at one point where the stunt guy and her just threw each other around everywhere, because, I can't throw Jatay around. I had to be very, very careful with her, because she's very small, because she's on my back. And it's just like, you could easily just put her into the wall. She's really
But I will say this, the stunt people threw each other around, but there is the shot looking over you with your face.
Oh no, she kicked me.
Jumping on you.
Kicking me. Yeah, she got me right there.
But really stayed jumping on your back. And we did it over and over again, jumping on your back. And then I remember we saw you the next day sitting in like the hotel bar, and you really took a beating.
I've got a neck problem, yeah.
The craziest is when we dropped one of the twins out the window and Jason caught him. That was nuts.
That was a real kid.
That was awful, guys.
She almost didn't.
No, because we had a dummy, and somebody let the twins come out, and watch this dummy that's dressed exactly like them drop out of the window, and then they were like, okay, now it's your turn, and and all they needed them to do it with just be in Jason's arms and go like this, but they were watching this dummy that was like kicking, and I was dropping it out of the window over and over and over, and then they suddenly, when they're like, okay, time for the boys, the boys looked down at their costume and were like,
Wait a
no,
second.
no, 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 pourquoi, because they only spoke French.
I probably told you never to tell that story.
Tell me it was heavy. I nearly
You're
knocked
like,
me
no
out.
more lawsuits, guys, no more.
Few more
Abuse the animals,
questions?
they abuse
Over
the
here
kids.
on the side. Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, that's not my daughter. And, but like my mom like knows within the first hello if something's wrong with me. Like that's it. Like she's just like, all right, you're not gonna tell me, or, you know. So I mean that's it. It's yes, of course, everything I want is coming back, but also that's not her. So it's not an easy, you know, that's this, whatever I did with my head. Whatever that emotion is.
The nod, shake.
What did it say in the script for that?
It said aneurysm. No, it didn't say that.
In parentheses,
Yeah.
paren, aneurysm face.
Rachel loses her mind.
It's a great example of what a great actor brings to something, because in this, as well as it was written, that part of it was not written, and it would be almost impossible to write, you know, and the choice that Amy made came from her, you know, and that is where that scene really elevates, I think, at that moment where you realize how conflicted she is.
And I think we were all kind of scared of that scene for a long time. I mean, that's such a
Yeah.
pivotal, that we knew that one coming down the pipeline was going to be so critical to making that.
Well,
speak to that.
yeah, we had remember we rewrote that scene like on set. I mean, like we got there and like Jason, maybe you guys were like, this is an impossible scene. And like we had like, it was good stuff in that scene. Like the lines were good, but everything was being talked through, and we were just like, wait a second. Amy's just gone insane and she's on a ledge, and Jason should be trying to talk her off the ledge. This whole scene should just be kind of improvised and emotional and really just like, where do you go from here? And it was, remember that? We were all just powwowing, and then it was like, all right, let's go. And it was like theater, and we just went for it like 3 times, I think, and just, you guys killed it every take.
Yeah, it went from one of the scenes we were the most worried about to when we watched you guys on the monitor, instantly we were going, this is our favorite scene in the movie, you know, and it still remains that way.
And we have time for one last question. Get over here on the aisle.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say that you guys are wonderful. I love the acting, and I love you in Mudbound.
Shout out Mudbound. Great film.
How long did it take you guys to shoot the film? I mean, you know, and was Stephen King as a consultant, or did you find? I don't know if you said that you talked to him later, or but he never came. He didn't know anything about the film until you finished. Or?
No one told
No,
him.
I'm going to jump in here. He is, having done a few movies with him now, he is a very, very savvy guy, and he understands the difference between the written word and the moving word. And, you know, what he's looking for from us is he wants us to find it ourselves, and which is a great liberty, and at the same time, actually, I think in a way makes you feel more compelled to please him, because he is giving you that lead. And you know, what he cares about is the essence. Like, he always saw this book as a story about a family. And this movie in particular really focused in on the fact that it's a family. And so he doesn't really want to get in the way, and even though he's Stephen King, you know, and for all of us, it's a great liberty. And when we sent him the first draft, well, the first time we sent him the script, we all held our breath because we weren't sure what he was going to think of Ellie being the child who's possessed, if you would. And Steven's, his response was, well, that's a really good choice. So you're like, oh, okay, well, anything else? No. All right, great. Then we showed him the film. He really liked the film, and we were still working on aspects of it. So he got involved in some of the choices we were going to make, but again, he seems to, I haven't worked on all his films, but the things and the people who else generally have the same reaction, which is he really sees it as a different enterprise and wants to give you the rein, and then it's up to you, and I think it makes all of us, in some ways, more nervous about it, because it's like, no, tell us some more, what you think, what are we going to do? And he's like, no, go figure it out.
Well, I think it was great. I was at the edge of my seat. You guys, your direction was great, and I just think you guys are great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, audience. You guys are great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And with that, we're going to wrap up. Thank you all for coming out. Make sure to
Thank
tweet
you.